So I bought Stigmata for 99 cents because it was on special. This is Stigmata by Colin Falconer, and it sat in my it sat in my queue for probably about 2 years. I'll have to look to see how long it sat. Not that it really matters. It sat in my queue for a very long time, and frankly, because I wasn't really that interested in reading it. It was a medieval novel. I've been kind of burned out on medieval. There was a time where I was soaking up every medieval adventure novel I could find until I kind of burned myself out on it. And anyway, I finally got to it um in my queue. I better pour myself some water. Finally got made my way to it in my queue, and turned out to be one of the best books I've read this year, if not the best book I've read this year. So that's my cold open. How do you like that? So who am I? My name is Cody C. Engdahl. I am the author that you know. I am the author of 6 novels, and you could say, well, yeah, 6 novels. I published 6 novels, published 2 nonfiction works. They're very short. The nonfiction works are. I have a third nonfiction work, which is merely just a compilation of my glossaries that you can get for free if you sign up for my email list below. And more on that later. Hopefully, I'm one of the things I'm working on is not like say I'm going to do something and not doing it as far as speaking, like forgetting it. So hopefully I'll get back to that. Um, but I have one nonfiction work that you can get through my email list, and there's going to be a novella as well that's coming up by the end of the year, hopefully, that you will also get for free. But we will talk about that later. Let's get back to the business here. So, one of the things that I do with this channel is I share my journey as an author, as an independent author, both the writing and the process of writing and editing, but also the marketing. And another part of what I do, which I feel is part of my job as an independent author, or really just an author, period, is to read other novels because I truly feel like you're not going to be a great musician if you don't like to listen to music, and you're not going to be a great chef if you don't like to eat food. Well, I believe the same thing is true with literature, that you're not going to be a great writer or even a successful commercial author if you're not also reading other people's novels, and not just read like the great classics, which you should be mixing those in, but read your contemporaries. Read the kind of books that your readers would also read, because I mean, even the most prolific writer, uh, um, you couldn't possibly write enough novels for one person to read in their lifetime. Maybe for some people, but my readers read multiple authors and multiple. I would say, I don't know if you call these subgenres or more like different eras of historical. uh, I would say I used to say historical fiction, but historical fiction is such a broad category. I write more of military historical fiction and action and historical action adventure fiction is um, where I my wheelhouse. And Colin Faulconer writes in that genre too, or that subgenre. That I guess the subgenre would be, the genre is historical fiction. The subgenres are military historical fiction and historical action adventure fiction. And then as far as eras, so I write mostly 19th century. The earliest period that any of my books cover, one of my books starts at as early as 1838, and my last book ended in uh, 1871. Uh, Colin Faulconer has a series, and we're going to get into this a little bit more, the series itself. But Colin Faulconer has a series called Epic Adventure. And let's go back just a little bit about Colin Faulconer. So I don't know what came first. at some point, I believe I became aware of Colin Falconer through social media and maybe even advertising. Um, and I don't really know his story. I would like to know more. I mean, I know this. I know that he is British. I know that he has been writing far longer than I have. I think his first book maybe came out in the 80s. I believe he's older than me. He is possibly 10, 20 years older than me, maybe more. I don't know. He either looks great for an older person or looks terrible for a person my age. I always think it'd be the former because I know this. He lives in Australia. He is an incredibly nice man. And I don't know if I'm Facebook friends with him or if I just follow his Facebook page and um, and that he's very active and is quick to respond to things because I feel like we have interacted several times and he's always very kind and very nice. Um, so he's a British man. He lives in Australia. He has this series. He's got a series called Epic Adventure. He's got other books he's written too. I believe that most, if not all, of his books are historical fiction or those subgenres of historical fiction. I'm not going to go through the long word salads of each one, but the same stuff I write. Uh, he might have some contemporary thrillers as well. Um, I'm not quite sure, but I had some assumptions of him, and one of them is, and I could be wrong or I could be right, but is that he had been writing these novels since the 80s and that they had been published by a commercial publisher, and that later in his career he has gotten um, the rights to them all, and is either publishing them independently. I think there's a publisher mentioned for him, but but I wonder if that is a doing business as like his own imprint that he has, or it's a very small publisher, or both. It's his publishing company, and it's a small publisher. And the reason why I wonder this is because the price. So his books are all $3.99 unless he's running a 99-cent promo on them. So usually the big commercial publishers can't afford to sell an ebook for less than 7.99 or more. And just to give you some perspective, um, uh, believe Bernard Cornwell's got a new book coming out. I think it's 12.99 for the Kindle version. Ben Kane's got a new book coming out. I think it's 12.99 for the Kindle version. They have to charge that much, and to put that in perspective, my last book that came out, The French Fiasco, is 4.99. We, the independent authors, can afford to kind of undercut the big commercial publishers because the big commercial publishers have entire staffs. They're paying for editors and marketing teams and a brick and mortar building. Uh-oh, got a message. That's Laura. I'll have to get back to her. Okay, good. I'll get back to her. So they have to sell their books for a lot more. And the truth is that at that price, it's still cheaper than buying paperbacks and hardcovers these days. So it's still a deal. But Colin Falconer publishes at $3.99, and most of my books, I have two books that are $2.99. I have the rest are $3.99, and the latest is $4.99. So he's selling his ebooks for about the same price as mine. He is also in Kindle Unlimited, and Kindle Unlimited is uh kind of like Netflix for readers. So the way Kindle Unlimited works on both sides is on the consumer side, you pay a a monthly fee, just like you would Netflix or Disney Plus, where it's just a monthly fee. And on Netflix, you pay a monthly fee and you can watch whatever's on Netflix, right? Kindle Unlimited works the same way. You pay a monthly fee. Whatever is on Kindle Unlimited, it's not every book. It's just books that are on Kindle Unlimited. You can read whatever you want as much as you want. I think it's a great deal if you are a avid reader, which might become a good deal for me now because I had been reading about a book a month, anywhere between almost a month to a little over a month to read a book. Now I'm at a pace now where it's taking me just maybe a day or more than a week to read a novel. And I think it's because of this endeavor I have taken on to read other people's novels and to be constantly reading a novel and reviewing it. Oh, and by the way, that was one of the things I wanted to say earlier about this channel is that I'm sharing my journey as an author, about the writing and the marketing, but I also am doing book reviews here because I feel like part of part of being an author is reading other people's books and learning from it, including what I like, what I don't like. I will say, I'll be honest with you, and I hope this doesn't make you change your mind about listening to my reviews or reading the reviews that I either share on Amazon or Goodreads, but also on my WordPress. I don't give bad reviews, and I only give 5 stars. If I don't like the book, I just don't review it and I don't give it any stars at all. I just pretend I didn't read it, and usually I'll just stop reading. I rarely have a book that I truly don't like. Uh, I I am going to be a little bit kinder to the author because I'm never going to put anything in writing. And the reason why is that, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I want nothing but 5-star reviews, because from you want the average of your reviews to be 5 or above. And so, I'm sorry, for or above. Because if it's under 4, Amazon stops showing it to people or doesn't show it to as many people. So you want to keep your aggregate uh, above 4 stars, between 4 or 5 stars. So I'm not ever gonna like critique or criticize another author or give them anything less than 5 stars because I know how much they need it and I know how much they appreciate it. That's just me. In the written review, I'm probably gonna be pretty much rah rah rah. Now I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna tell you what I liked about the book. I might not tell you the things that I didn't like or that I thought were problems. I might be a little bit more. I will be a little bit more candid in these because very few people actually watch my reviews. Some people do it, and I appreciate that you're here. So I'll be a little bit more honest here. Um, so uh, so that's the game. We're doing a review today. Colin Falconer has that. So back to my suspicion that he is now publishing his own work. I think it was published through a major publisher. He later bought the rights because some of the books go back to the 80s. I think he got the rights to them, and now he has published them through his own imprint, maybe because the big publishers can't afford to be on Kindle Unlimited. That's what I was trying to say. They don't make enough money on Kindle Unlimited. An independent author can make enough money. I mean, this is crazy. You'll never believe this, but an independent author who sells their books for less on Amazon actually makes more royalties per unit sold than a big um, commercially published author. And the reason being is that commercially published author has to share those royalties with an agent, with all sorts of people getting a slice of the pie. But the reason why they make more money is that they do typically more volume because they sell on Amazon, but they also get their books in bookstores. So the idea is a big commercial publisher is going to get you're going to get more sales, and so even though you make less per sale, you're going to make your money because you're going to have more sales. The way it works for an indie is that you're going to make more per unit sold. So you can have uh, your price is lower. You can undercut the big publishers, um, but you're not going to sell as many because you don't have like the big footprint that a big commercial publisher has. Does that make any sense? So the big publishers are typically not published. Like you're never going to read Bernard Cornwell on Kindle Unlimited. Let me know if that's true, if that's false. I mean, you're never going to read anything new. I don't think that his old stuff would be on there either. I think an old, like written in, like published in the 1980s, Bernard Cornwell book is still going to be like $7.99 for a Kindle book. I think I paid up to like $17.99 for a new Kindle from Bernard Cornwell. So you get what I'm saying. So anyway, I think I first discovered Colin Falconer. I believe it's been so long ago, and sometimes you don't know when the inception was. But I believe I saw an ad that one of his books was being sold for 99 cents. And I said, okay, this looks interesting. And I think that first one that I bought of his was Lord of the Atlas for 99 cents, normally $3.99. Later on, I got Stigmata for 99 cents. And then I realized that he was rolling through his 15 titles, having one or the other at 99 cents, sometimes $1.99 off and on. And if I buy one every time I saw it, not just him, but a lot of authors, that I would just be overloaded with 99-cent books I was never going to get to. So I decided, well, unless it really jumps out at me, I'm going to hold back on buying 99-cent books. And actually, I bought one just recently because I couldn't. I'm like, ooh, this is 99 cents. And I think I read it right away. So one more thing about Colin Falconer that I thought was interesting is that, okay, so the prices are $3.99 when they're at full price. That's interesting. That makes me sound like it's indie or a small imprint. And then the other thing is he's on Kindle Unlimited. The third thing is that, and of course the publisher could have done this too, but it looks like he's taken all his titles, at least the 15 titles that are in this epic adventure series, and not all his titles are in it, but there's 15 in it. And he had them all have similarly branded covers, so that you can tell it's a Colin Falconer book right away. And he recently had them redesigned, so he had all the covers were like a white field with his name, the name of the book, and then the center was some kind of artifact from that era, like a dagger or a sword or a musket or something that would clue you into like the era and the place where this adventure takes place. And so anyway, I read Lord of the Atlas and really liked it. It was really good. It's as good as any Richard Sharp, Richard Sharp's character, Bernard Cornwell, Richard Sharp book. It was about a couple of British Army vets in like the late 1800s who basically are hired as mercenary artillery instructors for like a warlord in North Africa. And I read that novel. It was good. It was a typical adventure of the genre. However, it had twists and surprises in it that I thought it was a very competent book that was typical of the genre, and I enjoyed it. And if you like Bernard Cornwell, you would like Lord of the Atlas. I enjoyed it very much, and I did a review. And if you look through my WordPress, you can. I don't know if I was doing all this back when I did that review, but you can see my review if you look at Lord of the Atlas on Amazon. I know it's at least there. So, like I said, later on, I got Stigmata for 99 cents, and I just put it at the end of my queue. And my queue right now is 28 novels long, and I keep adding things to it. So Stigmata was buried, and it looked like it was going to be a long time until I got to it. Until in the last year, my pace for reading has gotten faster and faster. So I'm getting through books, like I said, about a week, about just a little bit more than a week per novel. So I got to Stigmata. I was like, all right, it's time to read this. I've already read some medieval stuff recently. We'll get, oh, and I wasn't interested in the religious thing too. I'm not particularly religious, so it didn't really jump out at me, and kind of burned out on the Middle Ages. I was stunned at how much I enjoyed this novel. It was fantastic. It subverted a lot of the tropes a lot of my assumptions about what was going to happen, and like there's a lot of things in it that feel familiar if you read the genre, but at the same time, uh, the book kept me guessing all the way to the end. Um, some of the novels that I have read over the last few years, I have to make myself finish. I try to at least read 20 minutes a day. So like at some point of the day, I sit down, I put a timer on, I read for 20 minutes. Timer goes off, I stop reading, and that's good for today. This is a book where anytime I had free time, I went back to, because I was enjoying it well past my required 20 minutes of a day. I've been very lucky in that this year, 2025, I have so far read 13 novels. I'm on my 14th one right now. And several of them have been very good novels that I really thoroughly enjoyed. And the last two novels, Stigmata and Fire in the East, I finished overnight. I do a lot of over the night reading. So I read a lot on my Kindle, on the Kindle app on my phone. I have a full-fledged Kindle, but um, but going back, I have a designated full-fledged Kindle, uh, um, and then I have the app on my phone. And for a while, the reason why I like the app is because I have my phone with me everywhere. If I'm standing in line at the grocery store, I can whip out my phone and read a bit. If I'm in a lobby of the doctor's office, I can read on my Kindle, on my phone. And then I realized, but I was still going back and forth because back then I preferred the screen of an actual Kindle because it's a little flatter, it's a little easier on the eye. But I found that it was kind of a pain in the ass of going back and forth. Sometimes the app and the device were good at finding where I left off. Sometimes they weren't, and I had to kind of like search around. And that's probably my biggest complaint with Kindle, eh, either version of it, is that it's not easy to thumb through like a real book where you can kind of flip through the pages real quick and go back and look at something. That's not as easy. That's probably my biggest criticism of it. But going back between the two became too much of a hassle that eventually I just started reading exclusively on my phone. And I don't mind it. I know you can't really make that out, but I can scroll up and down. And at night, the background becomes black. So if I turn off all the lights, the background becomes black, and the letters become just are white. And then my phone will adjust to the level of light. So if it's a regular room, it'll be black background with white letters. But if I turn off all the lights, even the letters get dim. So it's just perfect. So it's not a strain on your eye. And then I found that, my girlfriend and I, we don't live together, but we spend about 3 nights a week with each other, and she sleeps a lot more than I do. So I like this is because I can read in the middle of the night without turning on the light and waking her up. I can just grab my phone and just read next to her in the darkness, and it doesn't strain my eyes because I'm reading in the dark. Remember, when you're a kid, and your parents told you not to read in the dark, so it doesn't do that. But it also, I'm not turning on the light and waking her up. I also found that if I'm by myself, and I can't sleep and I want to read. Sometimes reading helps me get sleepy again. I go back to sleep or fall asleep in the first place. Well, if you can't sleep and you turn on the light to read, well, turning on the light kind of wakes you up. So without turning on the light, I can just pick up my Kindle and I can read, for maybe 10, 15 minutes, get sleepy again, go back to sleep. So the last two books that I read, I finished overnight reading somewhere in the middle of the night where I couldn't sleep. And part of that is my insomnia, but part of it is because the last two books were so good that I was excited to read them and couldn't put them down. And that is Colin Falconer's Stigmata and Harry Sidebottom's Fire in the East, both great novels. So I will say, and we'll get into my written review, but I will say that Falconer's Stigmata, it reminded me a lot of Ken Follett's Pillars of the um, Pillars of the Earth. It takes place kind of around the same time. The one of the main characters is the daughter of a stonemason, and her dad is kind of like looking for work, struggling a little bit, and it reminded me of Ken Follett and with the clergy there was, but Ken Follett tends to be slow burn and much longer, more literary novels. This had like a Ken Follett feel to it, but still genre fiction, like I like to read. So let's get on with my review. When I write a review, I put them on Goodreads, I put them on Amazon, and then I also put them on my own blog. My own blog. I have a WordPress blog page where I do articles. These days, I mostly just do reviews on it. But my blog is a place where I do long format. The only thing that I regularly do are book reviews, and I do them as I finish books. I don't do like a weekly article. There was a time where I was trying to do that, and then I realized I don't need to unnecessarily be writing articles when I should be writing books. But if I have something to say that is more than a Facebook post or a Twitter post, I'm going to put it on my WordPress. Lately, that has been me doing reviews. So here's my official review of Stigmata by Colin Falconer. Far better than I imagined. Honestly, I was constantly surprised at how much I was enjoying this book. Colin Falconer masterfully captures the time and place of the 13th century France with rich textured details and well-rounded characters. Stigmata follows a young woman blessed and cursed by strange abilities, a knight returned from the Middle East who's lost everything, and a priest haunted by his sins and desire to do right. Their stories converge as the Cathar Crusades come crashing through southwestern France, burning heretics and laying waste to cities and villages. Ultimately, this is a love story full of heroic moments and plenty of surprises all the way to the end. It includes historic characters like Abbot Arnaud Amalric and real events like the massacre of Béziers. Stigmata has short chapters, making it an easy read that's hard to put down. It's one of 15 standalone novels that makes up Falconer's epic adventure series, which span from the ancient world to post World War II Saigon. I've read two so far, and if the rest are this good, I look forward to exploring more of Falconer's epic adventures. And then, like I do all my blog posts, I put in a preview of the book that you can click on, and you can kind of see. This is the preview that's provided by Amazon, so I think you can actually purchase it through my blog post. I don't know why it's not showing there. It might just not be showing up on my computer screen because, oh yeah, that's right. My computer screen is messed up. And then there's always at the end, there's my latest novel. I plug that too. And you can read a review of that one, The French Fiasco. So let me pull this back up here. So I'll talk a little bit more about it now that we got through the official review. I will say, just so you know, I'm very sensitive to not write, uh, to not have spoilers in my reviews. So my official written reviews that are on Amazon and Goodreads are spoiler free as much as possible. I give you the basic setup. Um, and I'm not going to do any spoilers here now either, but I'll go a little bit more into the setup. Uh, it is very interesting. I felt like the characters were profound with great emotional depth. The I've already forgotten the names because I've already moved on to a new novel. But the crusading knight is a tragic figure. He comes back from the Crusades to find that his wife, that he loved very much, she's been away for a year, and he feels like, if you understand any of the history of the Crusades, basically knights were promised absolution for all their sins if they went to the Middle East and fought for a year. If they gave service to the crusade for a year, they were absolved of all their sins. So this guy, and they would be guaranteed by a papal order to be promised to go to heaven when they die. So this guy does his year in the Middle East and comes home to find out that um, that regardless of that, his wife that he loved very much has died in childbirth. Um, and he's kind of despondent, like, well, I did what God asked me to. I spent a year in the Middle East, and this is how he repays me. He's despondent. He remarries. She is not very much a loving, supporting wife. He has the son that his wife died giving birth to is sick, and he will do anything to save the little boy's life. His new wife is kind of like, well, what do you care about that kid? And there's a little bit of suggestion that she has brothers, that if he doesn't have another child, that that her brothers might be able to inherit his title and his lands. And I kind of got ahead of myself because before we meet him, we meet this young lady. I think her name is either Fabrica or Fabricia, and she is the stonemason's daughter. Now, stonemasons are artisans. They're not peasants, but they're not aristocrats or knights either. And she has special abilities. If you know anything about Stigmata, it's a kind of a religious uh, legend of people getting like Christ's wounds in their hands. Like they'll have like their hands will start bleeding, their feet will start bleeding, and she becomes kind of a faith healer. And I think this is handled really well because I like when I'm not a big believer in supernatural things and don't like to see them too much inserted, because if they're in like my historical fiction, then it becomes fantasy to me. But the way Falconer handles it is that it she might be a faith healer, or it might be just coincidence. It's not overt, it's not on the nose, and even in the book the characters wonder if it's true or not. And so she has these abilities, which for some they think she's a witch in a time where they're burning witches. Others they think she's a saint. Well, this knight whose child is dying catches wind that there is a woman, um, and is he in Normandy or he's in Burgundy? There's a woman in the south who he finds out is healing people, and perhaps he could get her to heal his son who's dying. So he decides to go down south to find this woman to see if he can get her to heal his son. All this is happening during what is called the Cathar Crusade. There's another name of the crusade. It's built based off of one of the cities down this. This is in the southwestern corner of France, right along the border of Spain. And this is one of those like historical trivia questions, in that when we think about the crusades, like the traditional crusades of the Middle Ages, we typically think of European knights going to Palestine to fight against the um, uh, the Muslims. The the most famous one would be Saladin the Great, who conquered Jerusalem at one point and held it for. I know that the Middle East or the Levant or Palestine goes back and forth between Crusaders and between um, the Latin. They call them Latin Christians. Latin Christians. Well, yeah, the basically the Western Church as opposed to the Eastern Orthodox Church. And this happens over the course of several hundred years. I think the first crusade starts in the the 1000s, and the last crusade is 1200s, maybe 1300s. I can't remember when the crash. And there's several crusades. I think the first one was very successful, where the Christian knights were able to take the Middle East back, or Palestine back, and seize control of Jerusalem and set up a Christian king there. But then the Muslims came and reconquered it, and so then there was a second crusades. And I'm no expert in the crusades. I know enough about it, but I can't tell you detail by detail. But there was another crusade that happened in the southwestern part of France, and it wasn't Muslims, it was heretics. They were the Cathars, and they were Christian adjacent, but they had beliefs that were far from the traditional Catholic dogma of the time, and and their beliefs are described in the novel. And I don't know if how I didn't look up to see how accurate. I would assume that um, that Colin was very accurate um, in in describing what their beliefs. But in the book, their beliefs are they don't believe the crucifixion happened at all. They believe that that Earth is actually purgatory. Oh, my batteries are dying. I gotta plug my so I plugged my computer in. They believe that there we go. They believe that 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 mortals were cast out of heaven, and that by living a pure life on earth, which they believe to be purgatory, or that the earth is owned by the devil, that the devil is the king of the earth, and that all beauty on earth is is the devil's deception, and by living a pure life is the only way that they can get back into heaven. And of course, they'd just be considered hippie weirdos today. At that time, they were heretics. And part of the fear of heretics was that they were, it's all about control, right? Because the Catholic Church um, controls Europe. And this is before the Protestant Reformation. And so having beliefs outside of the church weakens the church, because if people believe this instead of what the church is saying, they're going to leave the church. And that means the church doesn't have the control over people. They're not making the money off the tithes. It's hard for me to speak because I'm recovering from tongue cancer. And so this is a threat to the church. So the Pope, I think it might be Innocent the Second, or Pius II. The answer to the growing heretical movement in southwestern France is a scorched earth crusade, in which, once again, knights, mostly French, but there were apparently some other nations as well, marched into southwestern France and burned down cities and towns and villages, any that were suspected of harboring heretics, and burning heretics at the stake and all this. So while this knight is coming to this area to find this woman who is allegedly a healer, this crusade is happening in southwestern France. And that is the source of like all the fighting, and in the novel there are several sieges, and of course some battle scenes are pretty good, and some fights and all that. And that's really where all the adventure is coming from. So the knight has to kind of navigate these marauding crusading armies that are laying waste to cities while trying to find this woman and surviving with her. And it was good. And I will tell you that even the end, a lot of times, like, I can read a novel, and shortly as I get into it, I can kind of guess where it's going to go, how it's going to end. I was surprised. And not only was I surprised, but I by that, but I was surprised by some of the moral ambiguity of some authors, and I'm not one of them. I like to write about what I think are real people. Like, there really are no true bad guys and good guys. There are people who believe they're doing right and wrong. There's some moral ambiguity with some of the characters as well, who like one character that really surprised me, because there's a third main character. There's the woman, there's a healer woman, there's the knight. There's also a priest who, let's just say, he does something very wrong in the beginning of the novel. And he does something very wrong to a character that we care about. And so we have him pegged as a villain, but he doesn't stay. And even though what he does is objectively wrong, and even to him, he has a little bit of a redemption arc. I don't know if it's a redemption, but he doesn't necessarily. He is guilt ridden, and he is compelled to do good things as well. So I thought that was very interesting. There was also, and this is not real. It's all. I mean, some of this I'm still not going to like dead giveaway things. I just don't want to spoil things too much by telling you that. Like, for example, the other thing is, like playing with tropes and not doing what you expect. And I think one of the most annoying tropes I see, especially in this genre, and God help me if I ever do this trope. One of the most annoying tropes to me is, there might be a name, a common name, a popular name for this trope. I'm going to call it the short round. The short round character. And by that, I mean, there's always like a street urchin, a boy. It's usually a boy. Sometimes it's a girl, but there'll be like a character that the hero meets as a child, who's kind of a street smart ragamuffin, and the kid's a thief, and usually like the hero saves the child from some kind of punishment for being a thief in the beginning of the story, and there's kind of like a parent-child relationship between the hero and the street urchin, and then the street urchin is used as kind of a plot device. So like just when everything seems to be going wrong for the hero and the heroine, the street urchin shows up with some kind of help, like a trap door for them to slip through, or some kind of supplies that the child has been able to steal, or something. It's such a a tired, predictable trope. And I call it short round because there was a character in Raiders of the Lost Ark 2, or Indiana Jones Part Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, and there was a character who actually named Short Round, who is exactly this character. The kid who is clever, a thief, who later on is a plot device that helps the main character get out of a tight jam. So there's a character like this in Stigmata. And when the character was introduced into the story, I'm like, come on, Colin, really? Are we gonna do one of these characters? Because I know of two books before this that I have read recently that had the same character in it, and I'm tired of the street urchin adopted by the main character. And so when this character appears in this book, frankly I was disappointed, but it doesn't turn out the way I thought it was going to turn out, and I was surprised. Okay, here's Lloyd Elmore Jr. Um, he says, and I'm not going to do Short Round's voice. I'm trying to get this to show. Here we go. Put on my reading glasses. Okie dokie, Dr. Jones. Hold on to your potatoes. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, the Short Round character was also in the Phantom Menace. It's Anakin Skywalker, right? And he's written into that story as the Short Round, the scrappy little kid who the main hero takes under his wing, and the scrappy little kid acts as like a um ex machina solution at the end. Uh, and so including Stigmata, I've read three novels in the last year that has a Short Round character in it. This one doesn't do what you think he's going to do, and it's a subversion of what you expect from the typical Short Round character. That's all I will say on that. And I don't want to spoil too much. I hope that hasn't spoiled it. I enjoyed this one so much. I was explaining it to Laura, who, by the way, is finishing up reading Malcolm's Bridge. She'll probably have it done this weekend. Written by our friend here, who's currently watching, Lloyd Elmore Jr. But I was telling her about Stigmata, and she said, "Okay, stop telling me about it. I want to read it." And she's going to read it next. And Laura doesn't like any. She won't even read the description on the back of a book. She wants to go into absolutely cold. We did a little experiment with that yesterday for her birthday, which was a lot of fun, which we'll get to. So I have not been able to talk to her about Stigmata at all, because she is now going to read it because she was so interested about it through my description. I will say this also, that it doesn't it's not a typical genre novel. It's not a typical novel of the genre. So it a lot of the novels I read within the the military circle fiction and the historical action adventure novels, they can be kind of formulaic sometimes. Even the best authors can write very formulaic books where, okay, you have the hero, he's a tough guy. Um, at some point, and some of these are really ridiculous too, where like there's um there's the overall villains, the other army are the overall villains, but there's a particular villain who's either on the other side, or sometimes he's another soldier on the main character's side. Uh, and so you have like the adventure against the main bad guys, but then in the last act, and usually like the last scene before the denouement, you have this kind of final showdown between um, the protagonist and the main character. And some of these books, I mean, you can just the beats are all there, and you can see all the beats in the first, second, and third act, and it's paint by numbers. And I still enjoy those novels, and I've read some ones that where the authors have done really good work in it. Stigmata doesn't play out that way, and very early on, I realized this is not a typical genre novel. It's more literary, and the story. And I will say this: I don't believe, like, maybe even in the first half of the novel, there was a whole lot of like swords and fighting and battles. That does come, and those scenes are good. But the story develops the female character quite a bit, and that's a very different story, very different from what I'm used to out of the genre. Um, and even the knight's story, it takes a while for swords to come out and there to be action and fighting, but it's not boring. It's a epic thriller, as um, Colin Falconer brands his series. So that's enough about that. I highly recommend it. What are my complaints? Really none. I might have complained about the short round trope character in it because it's kind of a personal pet peeve. But but no. Let's see. I have to. I'm I'm trying to do things. I'm trying to talk and do things at the same time. But no. Because because it didn't play out the way it normally plays out, I was actually quite impressed by it, and I was okay with how the short round character played out. So I thought that was very interesting. So once again, I would love to talk to Colin Faulkner. I don't feel he and I are friendly with it. Okay, I just put up the same thing, and that's not what I wanted to do. Um, Sorry, let me get caught up here. And now I got the spinning beach ball of death. Um, all right, what I want to do is share. Okay, there I am. All right, let me just get this up here. I would love to talk to Colin someday. I don't feel like we're friendly with each other online. I don't know if I know him well enough that I can ask him um, some. I'd like to have a beer and talk to him about this. So, like I said, I have some assumptions I think that are going on, and well, okay, there it is. Boy, I've been having trouble with this about this series and how it came to be and the evolution of who owns it and who publishes it. Uh, I could be completely wrong, but the one thing I will say about Colin Falconer is I feel like he's putting on a master shop of, is that the right word? Um, of online marketing, especially organic marketing. And I've been watching him for several years now, pretty much very close to when I started publishing and marketing and writing my books myself, watching him and seeing what he does and learning from it. So he has got this series called Epic Adventures, and there's 15 in it so far. I think he's writing new in it. Um, I wonder if I can organize these in the order that they are published. If you notice, they all have branded covers, meaning that all the covers have a very distinct look in which you can see um, who that just by looking at without even reading into the words, once you are familiar with his brand, you can see that these are Colin masterclass. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Um, I'm losing my ability to come up with words, which is probably the beginning onset of dementia here. Um, and the covers used to be different. So it looks like he's got new covers for all of these. Um, uh, and it's very, and so I would like to know that decision. What was the decision to get new covers? Um, the last set of covers, were those the originals, or did he have those designed once he, I assume, got con- control of the copyrights for all his work? Um, what's interesting about his series is that my series is serialized, and it's meaning that even though each book could be read by itself, all of the books um, are written in an order that I want you to read them, that tell a bigger story. Like each book has its own story that is complete, but the books tell a story that's kind of serialized, so that you know Perils of Perryville picks up the story that where we leave off at the end of Rampage on the River, and several authors write that way. Bernard Cornwell writes more of an episodic serial in which it's there is a chronology of the books that you can read them in the order of the chronology of which the stories take place, but the story doesn't continue from one book to the next. Rather, each book is kind of like an episode along the life of this character, Richard Sharp, for example, which is one of his probably most popular series. And we talk about that when you write a series of a serialized series, which sounds redundant, or an episodic series. But even in the episodic series, it's the same characters. And the television, and I stopped watching television in the 80s, so I always use an 80s reference. But the difference between episodic and serialized is like the A Team is episodic, right? You have the characters, and every week you know a little bit about their story, which is explained in the opening every week. They're ex-military operatives that are on the run, and in the meantime, every week they're going to they're going to help some down and out people fight against some bad guys that are trying to put the muscle on them. But you don't have to watch last week's episode to know what's going on, because every episode is its own story. That's episodic. Serialized is like Dynasty, where it's a soap opera, where every or in our current day, Netflix or Disney Plus streaming, where you have a streaming show where every episode is along the way of this overall story. Get the difference? Okay. Uh, with Falconer's epic um, adventure series, none most of these books are completely unconnected to each other. There's no connection with the characters, with the place. In fact, the stories take place as far back as ancient Greece. Like I think the one that's the furthest back is um, uh, along the lines of Alexander the Great, which is I think around the 200s, third century BC, and the 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 all the way up to like post Saigon, like Saigon in the 1950s. And so obviously there's no overall story that goes all the way back from, Alexander the Great to post World War II. And the reason why I say most of these are unconnected is I think that at least one of these, I think this one, Fever Coast, has a sequel that I think just came out. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, this just came out May 15th, 2024. And if you can see, even this one, it's brand new release. The ebook is $3.99 for the Kindle, $15.99 for the paperback. That's along the lines of what I charge. So that's why I wonder if Colin is independently publishing these now. And and it has he always, or does he own his own publishing house? Kind of like has his own imprint. Kind of like I have mine. Mine is Engdahl House, and all my books are published under the auspices of Engdahl House. And I can't. Let's see if I can pull up the name. So this is a brand new novel that he just released, and this is actually a sequel to The Fever Coast. And yeah, it takes place in 1752. And he does have a publisher listed. And look at this. I mean, that's great. I mean, that's professionally done. Great sales page. I don't have all that stuff on mine. Here's a bunch of reviews, just one-liners from publications, famous authors. And these quotes are just general about the whole series. But here we go. Skyview Publishing. So I wonder if Falconer, if that's his own. And the only reason I wonder, I mean, his stuff is professional, so I would think that this stuff is certainly worthy of, the biggest publishers out there publishing it. It's the price. It's the fact that he's on Kindle Unlimited that makes me think that he's doing this himself. Has he always been independent, or did he buy the rights back? I know of stories of authors in today's age deciding that they're better off going alone, that they built the publisher will do you well if no one knows who you are, and getting a big publisher will help get your name out there. But if you have an established name, perfect example of this is Griff Husker, who I reviewed one of his books just recently. And I heard Griff on Rock Paper Swords, which is a podcast that deals mostly in historical fiction novels and writers and all that. But Griff said that Griff is independently published, and he puts out multiple books a year. I've never seen a more prolific writer in my life. He's unbelievable how many books he has. I think he has like over 180 books published. He had some of his books had been published through a major publisher, and he said he regrets it, and they still own the rights to those books. And he says that, like I said earlier, that his royalties that he makes off of the books published through a major publisher are so much lower than the books that he publishes himself that it's no longer worth it to him. And he is such a big name in the genre that he doesn't need a big publisher behind him for any kind of clout or any kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Credibility. Everybody knows who Griff Husker is, and he's got his own business. I think he's got family involved, doing marketing, doing editing, all this kind of stuff. And he cranks out, like I said, I think he cranks out more than 2 books a year. And they're good. Like I said, I did, what was the book that I read of his? It was, it had something to do with wolves. And it was kind of a sub-Roman. Um, it was like 5th century Britain. Um, about 3 generations after the Romans have retreated from Britain, and the Anglo-Saxons are invading, and this young guy um, is he goes from a child to a warrior, um, fighting the Anglo-Saxons. And Griff Husker is another one of these guys that writes all over. He's got World War II, he's got Roman stuff. Um, if Griff gets interested in an era, he's going to write a novel about it, and everything in between, from Romans to World War II, and maybe even and everything in between. All right, so that is the review. Um, a couple things I wanted to tell you about. One was, I think there was something I promised at the beginning of this, and I think I've already forgotten what it was. But I did want to tell you about Laura and her obsession with not being um, not being spoiled by something. And we're going to do a mini review here. So yesterday was Laura's birthday, and Laura loves surprises. It doesn't have to be something huge like a diamond ring or a brand new Audi, which, although she would like those things, it can be something very simple. It's like what I'm making for dinner. Um, One of the things we started doing a while back is I would take her on a day trip and not tell her where we're going and let her figure it out as we arrive. And she wants no hints at all. So this year was a little tough because of the cancer. I lost my job while going through the cancer, so I was a little strapped for cash. So instead of doing some day trip or overnight trip, I decided to take her to a movie and not even tell her that we're going to a movie. Just tell her that we're doing something. And then when we got to the theater and she figured out it was a movie, then not telling her what movie we're going to see. And then even when we went into the theater, I told her, I said, okay, and this is a her. She doesn't want to know. I said, okay, honey, don't look at the sign. We're just going to go in and sit down, and then I'm not even going to tell you what the genre is, right? So I took her to see Friendship, which is starring a comedian that I was not familiar with. His name is Tim Robinson, and Paul Rudd is in it. Paul Rudd is probably the big name in it, and Paul Rudd is the executive producer. And this is a movie where I first there's a YouTube channel I follow called Film Threat, and Film Threat reviews a lot of movies, and they reviewed this movie, and it's kind of like Laura. I started watching the beginning of this review, and or they did like a trailer react, and they started the trailer, and I stopped it. I'm like, this looks really interesting. I want to watch the trailer alone first to get my own impression. And to be honest with you, I couldn't tell if what kind of movie. I thought it might have been a horror movie. So I watched the trailer to it, and it turns out it's not a horror movie, it's a comedy. And it's a style of comedy they call cringe comedy. And so the trailer was wild. And I was like, wow, this looks great. And then um I watched it on Film Fair. And I think actually Chris Gore, who's from where I'm from, he's my age, he's from where I'm from. He grew up in Royal Oak. So hearing him talk about Detroit, filmmaking in Detroit, and all that, he's like a couple years older than me. So I was right behind him as far as like the independent filmmaking scene in Detroit. And, he lived in Royal Oak. I lived in Ferndale, one city over. Anyway, I wanted to see this film. It looked quirky. It looked, the concept was great. We're going to get into that. And then when I tried to figure out what to do with Laura, I've been wanting to take her to a movie because she likes going to movies. I don't like going to movies. I mean, I do, but I dread it because I have social anxiety disorder. I don't like people sitting behind me. I'm a nervous wreck when I have to go out and do anything. and Laura misses out on seeing movies. So I thought I'd take her to a movie. There is literally nothing at the theater that was of any interest to me at all. Nothing. I mean, the movies that come out today are terrible, especially the big Hollywood ones. And it's funny because I was like, well, maybe she would like this. I could see her liking this movie. So I'll tell you what the movie is about. The movie is about uh, Tim uh, Tim Robinson. If you don't know what he looks like, he's a big, goofy looking guy. He is a very yeah, kind of. He's got this big like uh, almost like a dorsal fin like nose. He's weird. He's kind of goofy looking. Um, he plays like a suburban dad in his 50s, um, and who becomes friends with this bigger than life, super cool neighbor who is the local weatherman on TV. And what happens is it's like a bromance gone wrong. Like the Tim's character is like this very normal, dorky guy who gets let into this world that is Paul Rudd is the super cool TV weather guy who just shows Tim this amazing world um, of adventure and fun and guys hanging out like we used to back in high school and college, drinking beer, all this stuff. And on one night, Tim is invited to meet Paul's other friends. And that's where everything goes wrong. Tim, being an awkward and a socially awkward guy, does something during this kind of guys' night party, which gets him ostracized from the group. And Paul Rudd's character is like, hey, man, we had some good times, but I think it's best if we stop being friends. And that is the inciting incident. And so the rest of the movie is this weird, socially awkward character trying to get back into the good graces of his super cool neighbor. And every step of the way just makes it worse and worse and worse. And it's cringe comedy. It's like you sit there in the audience and you're like, no, please don't do that. No, no. Oh my God, please. You like, there's nothing gross in it. Nothing like that. There's no violence in it. It's just, you're so embarrassed for the character and you're like, oh God, please no. Oh God, no, not this. Don't do this. Um, and I thought it looked fun. The setup looked fun. It looked quirky. So I was looking for it. I was like, okay, I think Laura would like this. So I could see Laura kind of, cringing and laughing nervously and not being able to look away or look at the screen. Couldn't find it anywhere. And I found out, and it's been years since I went to movies, that Tuesday, which happened to be her birthday, is a day that they have discounts at the major movie theaters like AMC and Regal. And I figured, well, I'll take her to a matinee because that way we can do dinner. And I had dinner planned at my house, and we were gonna have sushi and lobster bisque and chocolate ice cream and all sorts of stuff. And I couldn't find it, and I was looking at just the theaters that are around me, and no theater was carrying it. So then I typed in friendship movie Nashville, and it popped up, and guess where it was at? It was at the Belcourt. And of course, because it's kind of it's a comedy, but it's kind of art housey. It's a low budget, has a little bit of it in the it's an A24 film, so it has a very indie feel to it. And uh and so anyway, I took her to it. And I gotta tell you, watching the trailer, at first I thought maybe it was a horror movie. And it wasn't until we got deep into the trailer that I'm like, no, this is a comedy. And it is a comedy. Um, So unfortunately, that got given away. So I wouldn't even tell Laura what the genre was. That got spoiled because I'm telling you something. If you want to see some weirdos, and I'm not putting anybody down. I actually wore my Lacey t-shirt. Laura got me a t-shirt of my cat on it, and it says Lacey, and it's got a picture of my cat. I fit right in with the Tuesday afternoon crowd at the Belcourt. Um, there's a certain kind of people, a very darling people that show up for movies at the Belcourt on a Tuesday afternoon. So it was filled with those people. Um, and some of which could have been in this movie. And I think that somebody sitting a few rows ahead of us was already knew that it was a comedy and may have been a fan of Tim Robinson because that person became very well prepared to laugh. And so that person was laughing uproariously. Um, I felt a little bit like more than seemed necessary in the at the first few gags. Because you might not know it's a comedy right away, but this guy is laughing hysterically at everything, and so it became. And of course, that's one of the draws of going to a movie theater with strangers because it's a shared experience, and other people laughing are going to make you laugh. And so, long story short, we really enjoyed the film. Um, I felt like it's quirky. I felt like there were some things in it. I'm going to go into. I'm not going to go into. I'm going to go into light spoilers, not heavy spoilers, just light spoilers. There's some quirky. It's quirky. It's funny. There are some things. There's Chekhov's gun where you see something earlier in the film. Later on, it comes back around. You see, it comes into play. There were a few threads that I felt got introduced in the film that never got resolved. That, like in the beginning, Paul Rudd's character shows him this like ancient 5,000-year-old hand axe that he just got in the mail because he collects oddities like this. And this is kind of the moment where Tim Robinson's character becomes enamored with him. And I thought surely they've spent time showing you this ancient hand axe and spent dialogue on it. And as far as I know, if any of you have seen this, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt like that was never visited upon again. There was also a kind of an ongoing joke in which Tim Robinson's a character wanted to go see the latest Marvel, meaning the latest Marvel movie, and ha ha ha. Paul Rudd is a Marvel actor, and there was a little bit of joke of that. And then later on, because Tim Robinson's character becomes more and more unhinged, one of his little pet peeves is just like Laura, he doesn't want to be spoiled anything. And at one point in the movie, after he's been rejected by Paul Rudd and his friends, Tim Robinson tries to create his own friend circle. And those friends start talking about the latest Marvel movie, and Tim Robinson's character kind of freaks out on them because he doesn't want any spoilers. And I felt like there would be more to that joke. And I think that's the last time. Several parts in the movie, it gets revisited about he wants to see this Marvel movie, but he doesn't want any spoilers. I thought there would be some that would be resolved at some point, that there would be some payoff to that. It never came. There was a couple times in the movie in which Tim Robinson's character got overexcited and had a nosebleed. And this seemed like a thing that his character would do. That never got resolved. It just happened a few times, and then it never really, okay, what was that? There was just a few things like that. There was another thing, and I watched some other people's reviews, and this may explain it. There was another, there was, there were some things in it in which you expected something like I felt like they could have gone further with the joke. Um, that they didn't take like the obvious path that they could have done so much more with. One of them is that earlier in the film, while Paul Rudd and Tim are developing their friendship, and it's all based off Paul Rudd just being the coolest guy ever and showing Tim's character a great time. Paul Rudd takes him on this adventure where they sneak through the sewers to break into City Hall and end up smoking cigarettes on the roof of City Hall because Paul Rudd's character is such a cool rebel guy. So later on, when Tim's character tries to recreate that with his wife, who he's having problems with, and she is more and more as they're in the sewer, like not having this. There's a moment where it looks like she might think that he is taking her down there to kill her, and she runs away. And then he's running around looking for her, calling her name. And I thought for sure that the gag was that she thinks he's going to kill her, but they don't really go there with that. And there were some obvious gags that kind of either they didn't really play it out or they didn't take the obvious, like, low-hanging fruit with that gag. And I come to find out today, I was watching some reviews, and I watched one guy who didn't like it at all, but then the movies that he was like, this isn't laugh out loud, like, and then he named a lot of movies that I think are really annoying, like Adam Sandler movies and and Jim Carrey movies. Who I'm sorry if you love them. I find Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey, Will Ferrell, and everybody loves to quote their movies. And yes, there are times that, but most of it, I find those movies kind of like annoying. That's just me. Sorry. This guy named those movies as great funny movies and then said this is not a funny movie because it's not like that. Well, he's right. But he also said that it falls short of that dark comedy. And sometimes, yeah, I can see that, of it not going in for the kill. I watched another review, and I read one too, Vulture, which is the New York Times, and their review wasn't that great. But I watched one review where the person said, and the person made a really good point. First of all, I didn't know who Tim Robinson was, but I heard that he does skit comedy, and he's got a show on Netflix called "You Need to Leave." That's the name of the show, and so I've heard a lot of people say a lot of this comedy feels like skits from this show. And so I watched a little bit of the show, and sure enough, the character that is in this movie is basically the same character that's in all the skits of 3 seasons of this show. So now I understand because there were some bits in it that you could have taken out of the movie and you wouldn't miss anything in the plot, which some people would call that bad writing. But when it comes to comedy, maybe not. Maybe, I mean, it might have just been a bit where they said, let's just throw this in there somewhere and have the character do this, even though it has really nothing to do with the main plot. Okay, I'll give them a license on that. But one of the reviews said that to this person, he said that the fact that sometimes the jokes would fall flat or they would just let a joke fizzle out or not is part of the humor. It doesn't do what you want it to do sometimes. It doesn't sometimes it allows a joke to die on purpose. That's part of the what makes it funny. Okay. All in all, I thought it was funny. I recommend it. Um, Even though I give all books 5-star reviews, even though some books I've read are more like threes and a half, or fours. Um, I'll be honest with this book because I'm not worried about filmmakers' feelings. I would give it a 3 out of 5, 3 out of 5, and that is good. That's better than 2. 3 out of 5 is it's good. It's worth seeing. In fact, especially that's a comedy, it's worth seeing in the theater because if the rest of the theater is laughing, you'll laugh too. I liked it. I thought it was funny. Laura gave it a 3.5 out of a 5-star system. Um, I laughed through the whole thing. I cringed. I feel like I'm kind of a fan of Tim Robinson. Am I gonna watch the show? I already watched part of one skit and couldn't make it through because I was already cringing. The humor. I mean, the main joke is that whether it's this movie or it's this show, is that Tim Robinson is this big oafish guy who doesn't have a filter, and in his attempt to fit in with everybody else, um, goes over the top sometimes. One of my complaints about the show, the movie, I will say is that sometimes the character inexplicably acts in ways that doesn't make sense to me, especially his outbursts of anger. And he does things that are suddenly rash and violent, and it doesn't make sense in the context of the movie. But if you watch the show, you realize because it comes from skit humor. So skits, you have less time to develop things. So I told Laura when we were kind of analyzing it before I watched all the other reviews, is that a lot of the things that don't including the incident that gets Tim kicked out of the circle of friends and loses his friendship with Paul Rudd. Um, what causes this comes out of nowhere and doesn't really make any sense. But then as you watch the movie several times, the character who's kind of a mild mannered guy who just is socially awkward will lash out for no reason at all. Why? Unless you decide by the end that the guy really is a psychopath and that this trauma of losing the friendship kind of wakens that in him and causes him to his wheels to go out of control more and more and more. So I will say that some of the motivations of Tim's character didn't make sense to me unless you're looking at this as just an hour and 45-minute Saturday Night Live skit. Apparently, Paul Rudd and Tim Robinson were together on Saturday Night Live, and this movie is kind of a continuation of that skit. I guess I'm not quite sure. So that's that. All right, so we are probably oh my god, we're an hour and a half into this. All right, so I'll wrap it up. What's going on with me? Okay, real quick health wise. I'm still, if you can hear it, I'm still dealing with learning how to eat and talk. My mouth is still swollen. I'm eating soups and yogurts, but I'm having Ritz crackers and cheese balls with them. My therapist says that's a transition to eating more solid foods because they turn to mush when they mix with your saliva. Um, it does leave my throat sore and my mouth kind of torn up. But it's okay. I have a little bit of swelling and it's a little tender where the tumor was. Writing wise, I started my novella. I started last Friday with my bare minimum of 500 words a day, Monday through Friday. I've kept that up so far. I still have to do a writing session today. I'm going to do it as soon as I get done with this. That is coming along great. So if you didn't know already, well, the plan is that I'm writing a novella. I'm guessing it's going to be 20,000 to 40,000 words long. It might be shorter than that, might be longer than that. I'm putting no parameters on it because I'm giving it away for free. That's right. Giving it away. It's a novella. It's going to be given away as an ebook, free and exclusive to my email list. Lloyd, you said you want a hard copy. You can download it as a PDF and print it out if you like. And I will sign the printout if you like. That is possible if you don't want to read it on Kindle. It's a marketing ploy. So I've learned from several people, including Brian Cohen, that that one of the things that you want to do, I mean, you want to run Amazon ads occasionally run meta ads. Meta ads are very expensive to run consistently, so you got to be very careful because they can spend money very fast. Where meta ads or where Amazon ads are relatively cheap and won't blow your budget. But there's nothing better than an email list, because an email list, you own it yourself. No one can take it away from you, and it does cost um, a yearly fee to host my domain name, which is angdollhouse.com. Unfortunately, you have to get that to do professional emailing. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why. Read Brian Cohen's book on it, Email Marketing for Authors. That will explain the reasoning behind that. I also have to pay a monthly fee for BookFunnel to host the freebies, the free books, the ebooks that I'm giving away. Or if you decide to sell the books directly instead of doing it on Amazon, you can sell them using BookFunnel as a host to keep all your ebooks on there. But the idea is you create a lead loss, or a leader loss, or what the in the writing world is called a reader magnet, and basically a freebie that I'm going to advertise to get people on my list. If you're on my list right now, you will get the book for free. It'll be sent out to everybody. After I do that, everybody who is a new sign up, when you sign up, you will get once you sign up, you'll get a screen that says, "Thanks for signing up. Here's how to download it." But you'll also get an email that will have the link to download it as well, if you don't want to download it right away. But to test this out, I created a compiled universal glossary. It's a glossary of military, archaic, and foreign terms that I use in my novels. That if you're not familiar with, you can look them up in the glossary. I usually explain things as I write, but sometimes I don't want to bog people down if they're familiar with the genre and they're familiar with these words, or if I've explained it somewhere earlier in the book and you want to real quick look that word up. It's just um, it's just a reading aid, and I thought by creating a universal glossary, it would be a good test of how the delivery system works. So you can get that for free right now if you sign up for my email list. There's a link in the description below of this to do that. And the other reason why I created the universal glossary is that in the beginning, the idea behind the glossaries was I created one for Rampage on the River, and then I copied and pasted it into Perils of Perryville Book 2 and added any new words to it. And I kept doing that. But by the time I got to Mexico, My Love, which was a different war, a different era, there was a lot of unnecessary entries in it that I realized that. So I took a lot of the words out and added new words that are only particular to Mexico, My Love. And then when I did the Prussian Prince, once again, there was a lot of words like Spanish words and things like that that no longer that weren't pertinent to the Prussian Prince. So I took them out. So I realized that now every book has a specific glossary to it. I mean, there is some overlap, and I realized that it was going to be really hard to keep track of that, especially since there are some universal words that will be in all the books. So I decided that instead of copying and pasting the glossary into each book, that to keep a master glossary, and then when it's time to publish, and I always add new terms to that master glossary, and then when it's time to publish, from the master glossary, create a specific one to the new book, instead of putting the whole thing in every book. Does that make sense? As it gets bigger and bigger. So that's that. So I'm going to let you go because my throat, my mouth is dry, and I've gone too long. That is the review. Oh, the name of the novella is The Underground Railroad Ball, and I'm planning on it coming out this fall. hopefully sooner. You know, by chance, maybe later, but I'm really hoping it shouldn't take me that long. We'll see if I keep up my writing pace, and we'll see how long the book is. So anyway, I love you guys. If you're a writer, keep writing. If you're a reader, keep reading. And do me a favor, if not for me, for your favorite authors out there, make sure you give them, 5-star rating if you would. If not, as many stars as you're willing to part with on Amazon and Goodreads. And the next step in that is if you can write a few sentences about really liked it, couldn't put it down. Bam, that's all. You don't have to write reviews as long as mine. It can be just a few words. I just let people know that you liked it. It helps the algorithm. It helps readers discover if that author wrote a good book that you think other people might like. It helps other readers find it. So that's a big help. Love you guys. We'll talk next week. I don't know what the subject will be. At some point, I want to talk about authors becoming coaches. I have this theory, like why failed authors become writing coaches. I get come-ons. I have one going on right now. I get come-ons all the time of people who claim to be authors, who want me to hire them to do marketing for them, to do editing for them. And my feeling is always this: if you're such a successful author, then why are you spending any time doing marketing or editing for other authors? Why aren't you just writing more books? I have had people tell me that I should be an author coach, and charge people money. I do it for free because I don't feel like I've accomplished enough where I have the authority and the credit to tell someone what to do, even though I certainly have my opinions of what I think other people should do. And it's kind of a conundrum. If I get to that point where I feel like I'm successful enough and have enough authority and credibility, well, then why would I spend any time telling someone else, coaching someone else, when I could be writing my own books? It doesn't make any sense. And I know some who actually admit, especially in marketing, that they tend to be better marketers than they are fiction writers. So they've shifted to that and they enjoy it. And there are some who find that they're better editors than writers. Okay, I get that. But I will say it's tiring. The author world, especially in the independent world, is full of sharks and leeches. And some of these people, most of them, I'm sure, are well-meaning. But there's a lot of people trying to make money off of the dreams of other people. And so they're looking for independent authors or would-be authors, and making promises of, I'm going to help you market your book, your novel, or all that kind of stuff. If you're so great, then why aren't you just doing it for yourself? Anyway, that's a topic that I might do someday, but I want to put it together a little bit more. But I have someone, I know the routine. It happens time and time again. Someone out of the blue friends me on one of the social media platforms. They're an author. They start asking me a bunch of questions, like they're interested in me as an author, and they're an author too. And once again, if you're a successful author, why are you just randomly reaching out and then asking? It's one thing, and I've had legit authors, say, "Hey, you and I write the same genre. We should be friends." Absolutely, and we're friends now, and that's great. Daniel Green, he wrote. He's much more successful than I am. He had no agenda other than, we are writing both Michigan Cavalry Civil War posts. Let's be friends. And he's a great guy. But the ones that start asking a bunch of general questions, that tells me that they have no idea who I am, Not that I'm anybody, but why are you so interested in me all of a sudden if you don't know these basic things? Like, how many books have you written? Can you send me a link to your books? What kind of books do you write? Motherfucker, just type my name into Amazon and you'll see. I'm not playing the game. I'm going through the game right now with someone on Twitter. Um, anyway, and then it's always the same thing. They try to lead you into this false sense of security by acting like they're truly interested in you, and that somewhere along the line is going to be a sales page. I like to clown them. I'm kind of clowning this one. This one wrote to me, I've published 90 books. How many books have you published? I wrote 91. All right, I'm a jackass. All right, I love you. I will see you next week. Talk to you. So let's see if I can get out of this gracefully. It's my own cringe comedy.